by the Society of American Baseball Research. I think I said that right. Society for American Baseball Research. And it's done by a man named Anthony Bush. And since it's baseball season, I thought it would be really fun to read it. I think I asked him permission in the past. So a lot of people can listen to it in a car where they don't necessarily have the time to sit and read it. People are busy. And what you're seeing on the film is actually Ernie Nevers' son, but he didn't know it. Gene Sullivan did not know he was Ernie Nevers' son 5 years ago. And so this is just like stuff to show you while I'm reading the article, if anybody's looking, but I hope you enjoy it. It has a lot of history about Ernie Nevers and his love for baseball, and I'm sure he would have preferred baseball, but he was a better NFL player, and he has a lot of history with the NFL. Um, it's just really fun. I wanted to do it for the family especially. So Ernie Nevers' football career as a fullback and a coach is well documented. While a full biography has yet to be written, much ink has been spilled in the telling of his Gridian glory. His baseball career has not been so well scoured in the near century since he pitched professionally. It is only natural that his football playing, he was a charter member of both of the College Football Hall of Fame and the Pro Football Hall of Fame, has overshadowed his more modest diamond doings. Ernest Alonzo Nevers was born on June 11, 1902, in Willow River, Minnesota. The youngest of seven children, he stood 6 feet and weighed 200 pounds in adulthood and batted and threw right-handed. His parents, George Edward Nevers, 1862 to 1933, and Mary Ann McKenna Nevers, 1862 to 1937, were married in their native New Brunswick, Canada, in 1881. Their first two sons, Harry and Frank, were born in Fredericton, New Brunswick. Two more sons, John and George Charles, were born in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. Another son, Arthur, was born in Hinckley, Minnesota. Their only daughter, Edith Swanson, was born in Willow River. Ernie, he was just crazy about baseball. He always carried a bat around. He wanted someone to pitch to him. He was a very friendly little boy, recalled Willow River resident Genevieve LeBerg in 1972. This is likely due to having older brothers who played baseball. Typically, only last names were used, so which of the brothers being mentioned in newspaper coverage remains up for conjecture. Among the specifics, the Duluth News Tribune reported on May 26, 1908, John and George Nevers went to Pine City Sunday to do the battery work for the Willow River baseball team. George C., his grandson and great-grandson played in the minor leagues. The Kansas City A's drafted John Gordon Gordy Nevers in 1958. Gordy's son, Tom Nevers, was a 1990 first-round pick by the Houston Astros. Also, Edith's husband and sister was married to Jack Cunningham, brother of Detroit Tigers pitcher George Cunningham, from Sturgeon Lake, Minnesota. The Nevers family of English origin has been traced back to Ernie's fifth grade grandfather in Massachusetts in 1666. Census information shows that Mary Ann McKenna was born to an Irish father and a Canadian mother. George E. Nevers was an innkeeper in Wisconsin and Minnesota. His hotel in Moose Lake, Minnesota burned in a fire May 30th, 1912. He rebuilt a hotel in Moose Lake, but it burned as well. In the October 12th, 1918 Cloquet, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, Cloquet fire, a 250,000 acre forest fire that killed 453 and displaced 52,000 people. In the aftermath of the first fire, Ernie's parents moved to Alaquez neighborhood of Superior, Wisconsin, where George E. owned a saloon. Oh, I have a funny story on our channel about that too, because it's really a great story. If you look on our channel for George Nevers and bandits, the word bandits, you can hear that story too. So Ernie Nevers went to Superior Central High School. The football team won the state title in his sophomore year, but in his junior year, it lost the championship to lacrosse and its star player, Bob Fitzke. Nevers played in 3 state baseball tournaments with 1 championship. Nevers' parents relocated to the Ricon Valley region of California's Sonoma County to open a fruit ranch, coincided with the enactment of Prohibition in 1920. In his senior year, he started on the Santa Rosa High School football team, but returned to Superior to play basketball for Central. He also invented the hook shot. I'm not sure they're going to say that in here, but it's recorded several places that he invented the hook shot. So he graduated from Central in 1921 and planned on attending the University of Wisconsin. A letter from his father persuaded Nevers to move back to California. He went to Santa Rosa Junior College before enrolling at Stanford in 1922. He played baseball for the junior college, the Santa Rosa Outlaws, the Sonoma State home, and the Grattan team. He then played on Stanford's freshman sports squads in the 1922-23 school year. His baseball coaches were freshman coach Ernest Husky Hunt and varsity coach Harry Wolter. Nevers was the first player to hit a home run over the center field at Stanford, and his freshman team beat Berkeley High School 13-1 on March 10, 1923. He then starred for Santa Rosa Baseball Club, sponsored by Wyatt, sorry, this is light writing here, Walt Nagel's Sports Shop. His other summer baseball playing during his Stanford years included 2 seasons for the Greenville Tigers. He pitched all 16 innings in Greenville's 1-0 win against Cotati on July 13, 1924. Besides playing football and baseball for Stanford, Nevers threw javelin and was a 2-year basketball starting forward, and that's a professional basketball too. A 4-run third inning marred Nevers' varsity basketball debut when he pitched 7 innings at home on March 8, 1924. Stanford lost to the San Francisco Olympic Club 5-2. Later, he started the final 5 games of the season, which included a shutout against St. Mary's College of California and 3 hit victories over Santa Clara before concluding the series against California. Nevers hit a home run and pitched a complete game in the 5-4 loss at Berkeley on April 12th. He hit another home run and went the distance as Stanford stormed back to win 7-2. On April 19th, also at Berkeley, finally on April 26th, he took a 7-1 lead into the 8th before being lifted for a reliever. Stanford hung on for a 7-6 home victory. In his first game in the 1925 season, he played at home on March 14th. Nevers tossed a shutout and hit 2 triples against Oakland's Ambrose Taylors. On a trip to Los Angeles, Stanford lost at Occidental 6-5. On March 24th, Bud Teachout went the distance for the home team. Nevers took the loss, but he followed by hurling a complete game to beat USC 2-1 on March 27th. Rain delayed the season, ending the series against California. Time off did not benefit Nevers. When he starred at their matchup at Berkeley on April 11th, California Jimmy's Dixon hit a first-inning 3-run homer and a third-inning grand slam off a reliever and I hope I'm saying that right, reliever, after Nevers issued 3 walks. Tagged with a loss, he allowed 7 runs in 1927 5-5 rout. Nevers redeemed himself. When the teams met again on April 18th, he blasted the longest home run ever hit at Stanford. I'm going to move the camera a little since there's no video there. That's weird. Those are kind of fun pictures. So let's see here. When the teams met again on April 18th, he blasted the longest home run ever hit at Stanford. He also scored the tying run on Chuck Johnston's walk-off 2-run single that gave him a complete game win, 4-3. They met once more at Stanford on April 25th for what turned out to be his final college game. No athlete of fiction or reality had a game made more to his order than that one, reported the San Francisco Examiner, probably Gene's other father, Prescott Sullivan. So they knew each other. So he hit a ground slam on full count with 2 outs in the 3rd inning. He also hit a triple and tossed another complete game in the 8-4 win. Nevers left Stanford after the 1925 fall semester to pursue professional sports. Football came first, but he sent this telegram on the same day that he played his first pro Gridiron game. Jacksonville, Florida, January 2nd. Harry B. Smith, sporting editor to the Chronicle, San Francisco, signed the contract with the Louis Browns today, Ernie Nevers. So he was not alone among football players to be given a chance at pro baseball. Others included Jackson Kiefer, Doug Wyckoff, Pooley Hubert, Joe Guyon, Red Strader, and Red Bannon. In 1919, George Halas had played for the New York Yankees. Nevers had a whirlwind schedule in the early weeks of 1926 before reporting to the spring training at Tarpon Springs, Florida on February 27th. He played 2 football games in Jacksonville for an upstart team dubbed the All-Stars. The team disbanded prematurely on January 12th due to low attendance and the promoters' financial losses. He then headed to North Madison, Wisconsin, to Paul Putty Nelson, his superior teammate, who became a star football player for Wisconsin. While there, he practiced with the instructor and instructed the Badgers pitching corps, while Ray Skalak worked with the catchers. Nevers dabbed in pro basketball by playing 3 games for the Milwaukee Swedenson Fords. Milwaukee beat the Chicago Caper and the Caper Big Five at home on January 27th, lost at Chicago on February 4th, and defeated the New York Nationals at the home on February 8th. In between, he slipped into stop in Superior for the dedication of the normal school's gymnasium on January 30th. Nevers married Mary Elizabeth May Haggerty on February 16, 1926 in San Francisco. Baseball altered their summer wedding plans as they opted out for an impromptu, informal ceremony at a friend's house. May's brother, Leo Haggerty, became a Stanford catcher whom the Boston Red Sox signed in 1937. He played in the minors for 2 years. The Browns spent their second of 3 spring training camps at Tarpon Springs in 1926. Universal Services' Warren Brown wrote, "The chief object of interest among the pitchers is a football player, Ernie Nevers. He has some of the pitching mannerisms of Carl Mays and of Grover Alexander." Nevers made his major league debut as a pinch hitter on April 26th at a home game against Cleveland. He was struck out by Joe Schott to end the game. Details of the innocuous start made their way across the country when it was mentioned in a syndicated column by Billy Evans. Nevers hit 2 long fouls before missing on a high fastball. Nevers did not play again for 2 months. Controversy ensued. He missed a 3-week road trip due to a disagreement with club policy. He wanted May to make a trip with him, but wives were not allowed to travel with the club. Newspapers compared the situation to that of Urban Shocker a few years earlier. The Browns dealt with Shocker by trading him to the Yankees in 1924. Also, the Browns wanted to send Nevers to Tulsa for the season, but he refused on the grounds of his ironclad contract for the full season. Nevers spent his time at batting practice pitcher for the St. Louis Cardinals. On May 9th, it was reported that Nevers joined teammate William Pinky Hargrave and Red Grange in buying Auburn cars. News of his buying a car one day and playing semi-pro ball for Moberly, Missouri, the next seemed to go hand in hand. Pitching against Hannibal, he allowed 10 runs and Moberly lost 19-4. While it was player-manager George Sisler's intent to bench Nevers for the season, St. Louis limped back home with a 9-29 overall record and sorely lacked pitching depth. Nevers threw a 6-hitter in an exhibition game as the Browns beat the semi-pro Malison Agathons 3-2. At Malison, Ohio on June 23rd, setting up his major league pitching debut on June 28, 1926. Sisler sent him in for the bottom of the 8th at the Chicago Browns, with the Chicago Browns trailing 5-0. The first 3 batters hit singles with 1 run across before Schlock came to bat. With 2 runners on base and no outs, Schlock put down a sacrifice bunt. Was it out of mercy for his fellow Badgers coach? Another run scored when pitcher James Edwards also bunted for an out. Johnny Mostel then filled out to the end inning, and St. Louis lost 7-0. Nevers did not play again for 3 weeks. Meanwhile, in his signing to play in the NFL, hit the news on July 11th. In his appearance at New York on July 19th, he entered to pitch the bottom of the 3rd inning with the St. Louis trailing Yankees 8-2. Babe Ruth walked to load the bases with 2 outs, which brought Lou Gehrig to the plate. If the Iron Horse had come through, that was Ernie's name, Nevers' baseball career would have been much shorter, but Gehrig flied out, and Nevers finished the game, allowing 6 hits and 3 runs in 6 innings, walking 3 batters and striking out 2. He also got his first hit, a single off Shocker, in the 11-2 loss. Nevers made his first start in the 2nd game of a doubleheader on a rainy July 24th at Boston. The field conditions affected the baseman Sisler's ability to convert what would have been the final out to secure a complete game win. Instead of the Red Sox plated 2 runs to tie the score 5-5. And that's how it ended, because the Browns had to catch their train to Cleveland. Nevers made 2 relief appearances to round out the month before entering the starting rotation for August. He had 6 starts. The first 3 were high-quality, complete games. The final 3 mediocre. In the first of the 6 starts, he came close to throwing a shutout at home against the Philadelphia Athletics on August 4th. He took a 3-0 lead in the 9th, but surrendered a run when Sammy Hale doubled with 2 outs and scored a single by Al Simmons. When Walt French grounded back to him, Nevers threw to Sizzler to secure his own first win. In a home game on August 8th, Boston broke a 2-2 tie win with 2 runs in the top and of the ninth to hand him his first loss. Only one of the 4 runs was earned. Nevers notched his second win at home on August 12th when St. Louis defeated Detroit 7-2, with Nevers allowing 8 hits while walking 2 and striking out 5. In 1926, major league teams rescinded their unwritten policy of not allowing wives on road trips. The St. Louis Cardinals allowed Grover Cleveland, Alexander's wife, to accompany her husband in view of the fact that he was keeping late hours in Chicago and lost his job for that reason. According to the Morning Call of Allentown, Pennsylvania, the newspaper also mentioned the conflicts that Shocker and Nevers had written with the Browns. The Cardinals' change of heart paid off as Alexander led them to their first World Series championship through the legend lives on regarding his degree of sobriety in his legendary postseason performance. May Nevers accompanied the Browns on their next road trip. The results were not favorable. Ernie started and lost at Boston on August 17th, and Washington on August 24th, and Philadelphia on August 28th. He failed to get past the 7th inning in any of the 3 games. A few days later, Ernie and May left St. Louis undercover in the darkness in the early morning before sunrise without telling the Browns that they were leaving to join the Duluth Eskimos NFL team's training camp in Two Harbors, Minnesota. He reported for duty on September 6th, the second day of the first NFL training camp. St. Louis lost 17 of the 27 games without him to finish in 7th place at 62-92, 29 games behind the Yankees. Nevers scored 30 points as his Duluth Eskimos beat the St. Louis Blues 48-0, and the Browns sportsman at the Browns Sportsman's Park on November 6, 1926. Meeting with the Browns owner, Phil Bailey, he resolved the issues of leaving the team early by asserting that business manager, Bill Friel, reneged on his verbal agreement that he could leave for football if the Browns were out of contention. Expecting Erie, Nevers instead left the meeting with a pay raise. He did not leave baseball prematurely for football again. Duluth played its final game on January 9th, 1927 in San Francisco. At month's end, Nevers was seen playing baseball at Yosemite National Park, ostentatiously in preparation for the coming season, but while wearing snowshoes. He played one more football game on February 6th. It was at least his 30th in 5 months. Nevers missed the preliminary week of spring training in Tarpon Springs, but arrived on Saturday, February 26th, in time to do considerable damage to the supper meal, according to the St. Louis Globe-Democrat. Nevers lost 26 pounds on the grueling football tour. Illness. Let's see here. Sorry about that. Illness then cut his preseason short, and he returned to St. Louis ahead of the team. The Browns' offseason maneuvers in hopes of turning their fortunes around did not take immediate hold. St. Louis hired manager Dan Howley and coach Bill Kilfer. While they were unsuccessful in their bid to sign Ty Cobb, Sisler stayed on as the first baseman and improved his batting average from .290 in 1926 to .327 in 27. Sorry, I'm going to have to drink some water. This is a lot of reading. Um, but it was more average but it was more of the same for the Browns, or the Clowns, as Kilfer called that season's team. St. Louis finished seventh again, and this time 50 and a half games behind the Yankees, to whom they'd lost all but one of their 22 contests. Howley called on Nevers 22 times that season, more than any other reliever. He also made 5 starts. When he started again in New York on May 11th, Ruth greeted him with a 2-run homer in the first inning. New York won 4-2, but he blanketed Murderers Row for the final 6th inning and allowed fewer hits, 7, than winning pitcher Shocker, 8, who also went the distance. Nevers tossed 2 shutout innings in relief, while St. Louis rallied for an 8-6 lead at home against Detroit on July 6th. In the 8th inning, Brownie's rookie center field slammed into, oh, there's a name here, Fred Schultz, slammed into the concrete wall and was knocked unconscious and broke his wrist in an effort to make the catch on the leadoff double. When play resumed, the Tigers commenced to score 3 runs off Nevers and then went on to win 9-8. Nevers surrendered a 3-run homer to Garrick at St. Louis on July 18th, putting the Iron Horse ahead of the Bambino for the season's home run lead, 31-30. This was Nevers' last game for 40 days, and he underwent an appendectomy on July 20th. He traveled to Moose Lake, Minnesota, to convalesce. St. Louis went 12-24 during his time away, including losing 16 of 19 on a road tour. In Nevers' first game back, Ruth hit a triple as the first batter he faced upon entering to pitch in the 5th inning at home on August 27th. Ruth followed by swatting a 2-run homer in the 8th. His 41st of the season, securing Nevers' place in baseball trivia for having allowed 2 of the Babe's 60 bombs in 1927. Nevers then walked Garrick and gave up a homer to Bob Musel before getting the hook. St. Louis training 5-1 when Nevers lost 14-4. The reason I'm having a hard time reading these names is because when I printed it printed out the names really light. So please forgive me if I got any of them wrong. So Nevers made just 3 appearances in September, all in relief. He was not scored on 8.5 innings. He was not scored in 8.5 innings. He made the final start of his major league career at Chicago on October 1st. It was his second game of a doubleheader on the second to last day of the season. Chicago won 5-3 in 5 innings, with Nevers taking the loss. The game was called due to the darkness. For the season, Nevers went 3-8 with a 4.94 ERA. Could he have done better that season if not for a toll on that football took on his body? If not for the appendicitis? If he had played for a winning team? Nevers had 7 days to prepare for his second NFL season, a 9-game road tour from October 9th to December 11th. He played the last of a series of exhibition football games in California on February 5th, 1928. It was announced on February 11th that he would retire from pro football to be an assistant coach at Stanford. He again reported to the first full practice instead of the pitchers and catchers of the week of spring training. The Browns held camp at West Palm Beach, Florida, and Nevers arrived on February 27th, declaring that that he desired more pitching work than in his previous season. Newspapers reported that Nevers worked with Bill Killifer on altering his throwing style from sidearm to overhand and eliminating a full windup from his repertoire in attempts to throw harder and pay closer attention to base runners, respectively. A more likely rationale in 1928, when he reported to the Browns, he was racked by football injuries. They included 2 broken ribs, one of them pressed against a nerve in his back so severely that every movement produced agony, wrote Jim Scott. More agony occurred when Nevers and teammate Jack Oden spent too long at the beach on March 7th. Both men were sunburned enough that they could not practice. Howley outlawed sunbathing. Nevers is still in the guest class, James M. Gold wrote in the St. Louis Star and the Times during the Browns' presentation schedule. One day he looks like $1 million, and the next day he looks like 30 pesos. In the Browns' 3rd game of the season, Howley inserted Nevers to pitch at the bottom of the 9th inning at Detroit on April 13th. He tossed 3 shutout innings, allowing 2 hits while walking 2 batters, gaining credit for the win in the 11th inning contest. It was the first and longest of his 6 appearances, all in relief that spring. A scorekeeping oversight that charged Nevers with the loss in a game against Chicago on April 28th was corrected in July. The change might not have been as newsworthy, except that the actual loser, General Crowley, otherwise would have had an 11-0 record before taking a loss on July 20th. Cowder finished 21-5 in 1928, a season in which the Browns finally turned the corner by finishing in 3rd place with an 82-72 record. But Nevers, who had survived an off-roster overhauling, was not around for much of it. He made 6 appearances in the team's first 22 games, and then he was gone. Making his final major league appearance at Washington on May 4th, he allowed 1 unearned run in 1 inning in the Browns' 13-6 loss. On May 23rd, St. Louis sold Nevers to the Mission Bells of the Pacific Coast League, a team that shared San Francisco's Recreation Park with its more famous league rival, the San Francisco Seals. Mission, named for the Mission District neighborhood, was in its 3rd season, and it was also the last in which it would be called the Bells. Manager Wade Red Kilfer, Bill's brother, changed the name to the infamous Reds in 1929. Nevers started the 2nd game of a doubleheader against the Seals on May 27th. He went only 2 innings in his initial outing, both 3 up and 3 down. The only reason that the Blonde Giant was started is that Kilfer did not want to disappoint the hundreds who came out to see him. Nevers, it develops, has been a sick man for the past 3 weeks. Ernie is suffering from a severe cold and a bad attack of lumbago. I'm not sure what that is, but I'll have to look that up. His actions indicating that it was only with effort that he could get the ball over, wrote Abe Kemp in the San Francisco Examiner. For his next game, 13,000 people assembled for Ernie Nevers Day at a recreation park at the Bells, hosted by Oakland Oaks on June 2nd. Nevers started and worked into the 10th inning before giving way to the reliever. Can't read that. Elwood Gand. I'm sorry, but and Speed Martin. Martin introduced a double play on the only battle he faced before Mission scored in the bottom of the frame to win 8-7. Nevers made 29 pitching appearances for the Mission in 1928 with 25 starts. He had 16 complete games, 2 shutouts, and a string of 8 straight wins. He tossed a one-hitter and 2 four-hitters in consecutive starts during the hot streak. It was not all dominance. His record for the season was 14-12, and opposing lineups reached double digits in hits of 10 of his stats. He hit .374, 34 for 91 in 35 games, with a highlight of his batting career occurring at home on July 19th. He had 4 hits, including 2 home runs and 5 RBIs, while tossing a 4-hitter to beat the Los Angeles Angels 13-4. Besides coaching football at Stanford after the season, Nevers played for the state champion Santa Rosa American Legion football team and called the Bone Crushers. Oh, they were called the Bone Crushers. Mission's training camp commenced at Stockton, California on February 19th, 1929, with Nevers present on day one. He was heard to ask, "Is this the baseball club or a track team?" regarding Red Killefer's penchant for heavy conditioning workouts. Mission won the first half of the season with more agony occurred when Nevers' teammate, skip that, please forgive me. Okay, 60-63. Nevers played in 21 of the 93 games. I'll tell you where to get this article if you actually want to read it. So, for the overall season, he had only 36 appearances. He had a 5-0 record to start the season, but finished 7-8. He had just 8 starts in the 196 game season with 5 complete games. It was announced on July 29th that Nevers had signed with the Chicago Cardinals and would be returning to the NFL in the fall. Mission was tied for first place with Hollywood, with 4 games left to play. On October 4th, Nevers allowed 3 earned runs in 7.5 innings against Seattle at home. Mission already trailed 9-1 when he took over in the second inning, and the team lost 13-6. Hollywood downed Portland to take the lead. The next day, Herman Paletti threw a no-hitter in Mission's 4-0 win over Seattle, but Hollywood won as well. Both teams had doubleheaders scheduled for the final day, October 6th. Portland took both games at Hollywood to finish the third place 57-46. The Reds hosted the last place, Seattle 28-75, but lost the game in 12 innings. Killefer started Nevers in the nightcap. Abe Kemp wrote in the Examiner, Ernie Nevers' farewell was indeed brief. He was batted out in the first inning. Bill Ellington greeting him right at the start with a home run over the right field fence. Charlie Wade doubled, and when Lou Almanda singled to score him, he was taken out and replaced by Bill Hubble. Nevers left immediately to join the Chicago Cardinals. The score remained 2-0 until Seattle scored 6 in the 8th, which secured the 9-1 upset. Hollywood finished 61-42, Mission 60-43. Hollywood took the PCL championship by beating the Nevers-less Reds 4-2. in the postseason series. Nevers missed the Cardinals' first two games because of baseball, but he was back in the NFL action on October 13th in Minneapolis. Having played the final game on December 8th in East Orange, New Jersey, Nevers flew to California. Arriving at his father's bedside in Santa Rosa, hospitalized on December 12th. The elder Nevers had suffered a heart attack and was not expected to survive, but he was back at home for Christmas and had his family together to boot. Ernie laced up for the Bone Crushers to help them win another state championship on January 5th, 1930, in San Francisco. He then switched to baseball and played for Santa Rosa's American Legion team for the remainder of the winter. Nevers missed the first 10 days of the mission's spring training in 1930 because his father had another heart attack. The reports of George E. Nevers' death in various newspapers on March 5th, 1930, were greatly exaggerated. He lived until 1933. Ernie reported for duty at Stockton on March 12th, but the Reds released him from the camp on April 6th. Switching to semi-pro baseball, he played for Marlowe Music House, a Santa Rosa team in the Redwood Empire League. Nevers took on being the head coach of the Chicago Cardinals for the final 2 years of his NFL career, 1930 to 31. Still playing football in California beyond the end of the 1931 NFL season, he broke his wrist in the last play of the charity game on January 25th, 1932, in which he scored 4 touchdowns. After the game, he said he was done playing football and that he was through with baseball too. Nevers was an assistant football coach at Stanford from 32 to 35. Then he was head coach at Lafayette for one season in 36. From there, he spent 2 years, 37 and 38, as an assistant to Iowa, working with head coach Earl Tubbs, his coach at Superior Central. He was then back in the NFL as head coach of the Chicago Cardinals in 1939. Nevers offers from movie studios in 1926, but did not pursue acting at that time. With his pro sports career behind him, he finally made his way to Hollywood in the summer of 1932 and appeared in 2 releases later that year. His first film with a plethora, also uncredited football players, was The All-American, a football film starring Richard Allen, Andy Devine, and Gloria Stewart. His major acting credit is The Lost Special, a 12-part series Western based on a short story by Arthur Conan Doyle. He co-starred with Frank Albertson and Cecilia Parker. Nevers had another uncredited part in Saturday's Millions in 1933, also a football movie starring Andy Devine. Later, he and fellow Stanford football star Keith Topping signed on for uncredited roles in the 1936's Robin Hood of El Dorado. Nevers played himself in The Spirit of Stanford, a 1942 movie starring Frankie Albert, and yet another carnal, gritty and great. Ernie worked in public relations for Seagram's Distillery in San Francisco before being sworn in as captain in the Marines in 1942. After training in Quantico, Virginia, Quantisino, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce it. He was serving in Southern California in preparation for shipment to the South Pacific when he was summoned to return to San Francisco. May had fallen ill with pneumonia. She was already unconscious, and when he arrived on July 11th in 43, she died 2 days later at age 33. She's buried at St. Mary's Cemetery in Oakland, her hometown. He left for combat later that year. Sports columnist Prescott Sullivan, which is Gene Sullivan's father that raised him, he didn't live by him, so he wasn't around him his whole childhood. But Prescott Sullivan wrote a lot of articles about Ernie Nevers, and that was one of them. So he reported on Nevers' return on September 10th, 1944, after spotting him eating dinner at San Francisco Cafe. Sullivan wrote that Nevers had been at Bougainville and Green Island, among other places, but that old football injury had hastened his return home. My back hurt so that I couldn't sleep at night, he said, so they shipped me out of there. I can't say that I was sorry to leave. No one ever is. Gosh, there's a great story here. I wish I know enough about Ernie now that I could fill in some pretty fun details, but it's not in this story. So he received a promotion to major while serving stateside. Upon his discharge for the summer of 1945, Nevers moved to Chicago to become an assistant coach for the Chicago Rockets of the All-American Football Conference. Nevers married Marjorie Luxem in Chicago on January 31st, 1947. Gene Sullivan was born in August 47, and I think Tina was born 9 months after they got married, but he returned from coaching and the couple moved to California. They had a daughter, Ernestine Tina, born in 1948. Nevers worked as public relations director for Grace Brothers Brewing Company in Santa Rosa, and as such began hosting a sports analysis radio show in 1947. He held the same position for the California Wine Association in the 1950s. Nevers died in Marin General Hospital in Green Bay, California on May 3rd, 1976, at the age of 73, of kidney disease. I will always feel that what is most important about Ernie is not what he did as an athlete, but what kind of man he was, the way he enjoyed life, and the gracious kind of human being that he was, Marjorie said in 1977. Marjorie died in 2009 at the age of 98. The couple lie in eternal rest on Mount Templus Cemetery in San Rafael, California. The author wishes to thank Ashley McDonald and Teddy Marinick for research assistance. Also a special thank you to Tina Nevers and Jennifer Nevers. And so Gene had a wonderful time with Tina Nevers, knowing her for 5 years before he passed away about 4 months ago. And there's just a lot of fun stuff here. I could tell other stories, but this is already long, so I'll be reading more things. I have a couple really good magazine articles also about Ernie that I intend to make on a little video that people can listen to on their way to work. Hope you enjoyed this, and thank you.